Hey there, welcome to School of Emo, the podcast where we dive into the world of emo, pop punk, and everything in between. If you've ever found yourself in your car screaming the lyrics to Taking Back Sunday, wearing way too much eyeliner in the early 2000s, adding a buckle or a chain to every outfit you've put on, you are in the right place. I'm Erin Judge, and each week I will be your fellow student, guiding you through the music, the culture, and the history that shaped an entire generation of angsty teens. I am not the teacher of this school. I am a fellow student, here to learn alongside you and from you. Together, we will cover a lot of information that doesn't really matter, but will remind us of the days of stalking MySpace channels and getting lost in chat rooms. So connect your dial up, turn on your webcam, and let's go to School of Emo. Welcome to class. We are back in session. I'm Erin Judge, your host, and I am very excited for today's episode. A little nervous about it because this is one of the bands that probably has sparked the most controversy in the last 2 months, the start of 2025, and that is Brand New. Now, I was never a huge Brand New fan. I was not around for the height of Brand New. I kind of got into smaller bands in the scene because we didn't really have a scene in South Arkansas, and mostly just listened to the bands on CD that I had access to that I liked, kind of more one-off songs, and then got more into other bands. And I'm continuing to get into bands later on in life. So because of some of the controversies around Brand New that we will get into, I had never really been exposed to them outside of some of their songs that I honestly didn't know they sang, but I loved them. And so over the last year, I've been diving into more of their music. And in the last few months, I've been diving a lot more into their history. So today's episode is very well timed with the resurrection, maybe the mystery, possibly around Brand New. Now, I know as we get into the episode, some of you may have some deep feelings and thoughts around the band. I welcome them. I think it's also important that we talk about some of these things as fans of music, but I encourage you to come into this episode. And this is what I'm trying to do as well as a woman who is very pro women and pro making sure women are safe, especially in the music world. I am trying to come into this episode myself with curiosity, with less bias or opinion, and more just openness to learn and understand the heart of the music itself and where other fans may be coming from and just some of the pieces of the Brand New picture. My goal and purpose is not to drag anybody. It's not to maybe force an opinion or change your mind in any way or anything like that. That is not my intention. And I hope that that is received well, because that is the goal of this entire podcast, is not to push one thought, but to open space for many thoughts, and also open space to learn about the music that we love. And one of the themes of today is, can you separate the music from the artist? Can you separate the artist's past from how you understand and enjoy the music today? And what does that relationship actually look like? And what's okay and what's not okay in that type of relationship, right? That is really the takeaway that we'll all have. And that is the discussion that I would love to have as a community here that is slowly, slowly growing, which is a perfect time to talk about this kind of topic because there's fewer of us in the room currently. Now, if I could sit down with Brian Lacey for this conversation, I mean, anybody I think would like that. This band is a bit more private and has been, but there's so much I would be curious about and would want to understand, as many of you I know would as well. And I hope that that's something that we get. So a little precursor to where we are going in the end of the episode. But before we get there, let's start at the beginning and go back to 2000. So Brand New formed in 2000 in Long Island, New York, which was kind of an already simmering early 2000s pop punk emo scene. Their original lineup included Jesse Lacey, who was on vocals and guitar, Vincent Accardi on guitar, Garrett Tierney on bass, and Brian Lane on drums. So it's the band. Now, we've talked about all of this before, and we will get into some of the drama of where they started, But before Brand New, this group of members, so Lacey, Tierney, and Lane, so everybody except Cardi, were also in a band called The Rookie Lot, which also featured John Nolan, who then would go on to form and stay with Taking Back Sunday, which again, we're going to come back to. In 2001, Brand New dropped Your Favorite Weapon, their first album, and it was sarcastic, it was angsty, it was unapologetically pop punk, very much the pop punk, post-punk, hardcore angst, teenage angst, Warped Tour highlighted album, very much so. A lot like Taking Back Sunday and a lot of the bands at that time. So this included some tracks like Jude Law and A Semester Abroad, 70 times 7, we're going to get into, which were loaded with this kind of teenage angst and venom that fans connected to and that the scene was highly accepting of the time. Again, went on to fuel Warped Tour for the entirety of like the early 2000s into the mid 2000s, honestly, to the end of the 2000s. The production was raw, the lyrics petty and angsty. That is what we got. So looking at the Jude Law lyrics, we'll come back to 70 times 7. Whatever poison's in this bottle will leave me broke if when it's the genie at the bottom who I'm sucking at, he owes me one last wish. So here's a present to let you know I still exist. I hope the next boy that you kiss has something terribly contagious in his lips. But I got a plan to drink for 40 days and 40 nights, a sip for every secondhand tick. And every time you fed the line, you mean so much to me. I'm without you. Tell all the English boys you meet about the American boy back in the States, the American boy you used to date. Who would do anything you say? Tell all the English boys you meet about the American boy back in the States, the American boy you used to date. Who would do anything you say? And even if her plane crashes tonight, she'll find some way to disappoint me by not burning in the wreckage or drowning at the bottom of the sea. Jess, I still taste you and thus reserve my right to hate you. And all this empty space that you create does nothing for my flawless sense of style. It's 8:45. It's 8:45. The weather is getting better by the hour. Rains all the time. I hope it rains there all the time. And if you never said you miss me, then don't say you never lied. I'm without you. So this song, Jude Law and A Semester Abroad, was about Jessie Lacey's ex-girlfriend who fueled a lot of drama. She introduced him to Jude Law and the whole English thing, in his words. So this song reflects on the possibility of his girlfriend meeting some kind of suave English guy while studying abroad. So very much a, like, I'm jealous, I'm insecure, don't meet someone else. If you do, let them know who I am, that kind of mentality, which is very much a teenage boy's point of view, falling in love with a girl who maybe he doesn't trust or have a lot of security in. So this entire album kind of had a similar vibe to it. It was not just music, it was every person's, on the MySpace top 5. It was the perfect AIM away message. It was the ringtone you recorded on your cell phone that you wanted to passively aggressively put towards your ex or a friend that did you wrong. Like that was this entire album. And in an early interview with Alternative Press in 2002, Jessie Lacey said, we didn't have a grand plan. We wanted to be honest. Your favorite weapon is exactly who we were. Bitter kids writing about girls who broke our hearts, which leads us to the drama that was fueled by the heartbreak. And this was the emo feud to end all emo feuds, Brand New versus Taking Back Sunday. So I went into this a little bit in the Taking Back Sunday episode. Some of this will be repetition, but I went into more of like the lyric war there. But this all does come back to John Nolan, if you haven't listened to that episode. So he and Jessie Lacey had actually started Taking Back Sunday together as well. So they were going to do Taking Back Sunday together, technically, after the other band. But in the early days of them kind of working that out, Jessie was dating a girl and John Nolan hooked up with that girlfriend. So Jessie found out that John hooked up with his girlfriend. So they both betrayed him. So then Jessie left Taking Back Sunday left John behind, started this band with some of the other members of the other band. So went on to start brand new. And then that's where Taking Back Sunday found Adam Lazara, and went on to be Taking Back Sunday. But the feud at first was between Jesse and John, right? So that is where the album, like song diss track war came from. So Jesse with Brand New released 70 times 7 and then had those lyrics, right? Is that what you call tact? You're subtle as the brick in the small of my back. Taking Back Sunday Fire Back with There's No I in Team, literally mirroring the lyrics and kind of flipping the narrative a bit. And as I mentioned in the Taking Back Sunday episode, truly in this battle, Jesse was the one that was done wrong, despite everything that followed him later, right? If we just look at this point in time, without everything else known, Jesse got screwed over. He got cheated on, and then he basically got replaced when he left. He started a band that he was able to write songs based on all of his heartbreak, including from this girl, but also from his best friend at the time. And then his best friend, through his new band, began to like write lyrics. They were feuding in that way. And then Adam Lazara was talking poorly about Jesse Lacey. So then he was feuding with Lacey, even though he wasn't involved in the original issue. The rivalry then made its way to the merch tables. Brand New made that t-shirt with their name on it and the phrase, mics are for singing, not swinging, because Adam from Taking Back Sunday would swing his mics. And then Taking Back Sunday kind of came back and said, proudly swinging since 1999. So they were feuding. And this was at the height of, right, Warped Tour and all of these things where fans were choosing sides. Like fans were deciding which side that they wanted to be on. LiveJournal was exploding. Emo lore was born. It was messy. It was emotional. It was on brand for both of these bands. Teenage angst at its height. Teenage issues, teenage problems, especially teenage boys being very passive aggressive in their fighting with one another. Crazy. So Jesse reflected years later in a 2006 Spin interview on this time, and he said, we were kids. We handled it with songs instead of conversations. But honestly, that's what people connected to. So they probably, there was more to it of like maybe they reunited, that they were okay. They sang their diss tracks together like many years later on stage together. So they kind of leaned into it. Honestly, this probably helped some of their popularity at the time where a lot of bands were rising in the scene and only some bands, continued to get a lot of hype around them. And these two were at the top of the scene at that time. And they still are debated as being, which band is one of the best bands of third wave emo, right? Outside of our theatrical world of My Chemical Romance and Panic at the Disco, and even kind of what Fall Out Boy was doing, of the bands that were in the scene that were still a little bit more connected to this kind of post-hardcore, emotional hardcore scene. Who is the leader, right? Is it Taking Back Sunday or is it Brand New? And this feud likely helped kind of spark that popularity, and is still something that is highly talked about in the Taking Back Sunday world. However, Brand New, unfortunately, did have more drama that followed. But before that, we got Deja Entendu and the lead, The Road to the Devil and God. So in 2003, Brand New shocked their fans by releasing Deja Entendu. And this was a big shift from this kind of pop punk party angst, teenage heartbreak vibe, and went more into this darker, deeper experience. In 2003, in an MTV News interview with Jesse, he said, we didn't want to be pigeonholed. We were growing up and the music had to grow up with us. We stopped trying to write songs that would get radio play and started writing songs that scared us a little, which began to kind of pave their path or carve their place in the scene as being raw, honest, dark, deeply introspective, less about the rage, less about the pettiness that we found in their first album, but now more of this kind of deep emotional darkness that Lacey especially was experiencing. And many fans were also experiencing during this time, which is what they connected to. So this is where you got tracks like Sick Transit Gloria, Glory Fades, and The Quiet Things That No One Ever Knows, which became emo anthems at the time and continue to be if you are open to them continuing to be present. So Lacey's lyrics turned introspective, the melodies matured, critics took notice, and suddenly Brand New was no longer just an underground emo band. They were considered artists. They were highly reviewed and loved. So looking at The Quiet Things That No One Ever Knows lyrics, we saw the Western coast, I saw the hospital, nursed to the shoreline like a wound, reports of lovers tryst were neither clear nor descript. We kept it safe and slow, the quiet things that no one ever knows. So keep the blood in your head and keep your feet on the ground. Today's the day it gets tired. Today's the day we drop out. Gave up my body in bed, all for an empty hotel, wasting words on lower cases and capitals. So keep the blood in your head and keep your feet on the ground. Today's the day it gets tired. Today's the day we drop out. Gave up my body in bed, all for an empty hotel, wasting words on lower cases and capitals. I contemplate the day we wed. Your friends are boring me to death. Your veil is ruined in the rain. By then, you I can do without. There's nothing new to talk about. And though our kids are blessed, their parents let them shoulder all the blame. So this album was, again, deeply emotional, showcasing some of the heartbreak, showcasing some of the darkness that Lacey and some of the other members that were helping with the writing were going through. But then it was followed up in 2006 by The Devil and God Are Raging Inside Me, which is where everything changed. So this was not just a good emo record like we saw with the previous record. It was considered a masterpiece. And I agree. This is one of the best albums I've heard in a really long time. And this is where we got the track Jesus Christ, which was a song that I absolutely love and was obsessed with, not knowing that Brand New was the band that sang it. You know, it's like a song that would come on the radio, a song that has been present in my life since the 2000s, that comes up on playlists, that was on mixed CDs, but I never necessarily like fully recognized the band past the song, right? It was more popular even in TV shows and things like that. Probably found it on Grey's Anatomy. I'm pretty sure it was on there, but very much a huge song in music as a whole, not just in the emo scene. So this track and others on this album explored death, faith, depression, and guilt. So the production was not just more introspective and darker, it was haunting and reflective of how the band was growing up, how fans were growing up, and everything that was going on in the world around this time. We talked about this with the band right, Thursday, of like really kind of following the wake of like 9/11 and what, you know, millennials especially who kind of fueled the scene, what they were experiencing as they got older and how we were, you know, being immersed into like social media and a world that just didn't allow time to really heal from trauma and traumatic events that many of us were going through, but also just didn't allow time to truly be introspective and figure things out for ourselves. And it was a really complicated time. And this album really explored some of that difficulty and, you know, just what people were going through. So in an interview with Rock Sound in 2007, which was pretty rare at this time, Lacey said the album almost didn't happen. We lost a lot of demos and a leak. We scrapped things over and over. It was like bleeding onto tape, which you can feel in the lyrics. You can hear throughout the entire album. So looking at the Jesus Christ lyrics, Jesus Christ, that's a pretty face, the kind you'd find on someone that could save. If they don't put me away, well, it'll be a miracle. Do you believe you're missing out, that everything good is happening somewhere else? But with nobody in your bed, and the night's hard to get through. And I will die all alone. And when I arrive, I won't know anyone. Jesus Christ, I'm alone again. So what did you do those 3 days you were dead? Because this problem is going to last more than the weekend. Well, Jesus Christ, I'm not scared to die. I'm a little bit scared of what comes after. Do I get the gold chariot? Do I float through the ceiling? Do I divide and fall apart? Because my bright is too slight to hold back all my dark. And the ship went down in sight of land. And at the gates does Thomas ask to see my hands. I know you're coming in the night like a thief, but I've had some time alone and to hone my lying technique. I know you think I'm someone you can trust, but I'm scared I'll get scared, and I swear I'll try to nail you back up. So do you think that we could work out a sign? So I'll know it's you and that it's over, so I won't even try. I know you'll come for the people like me, but we all got wood and nails. We turn out hate in factories. Yeah, we all got wood and nails. We turn out hate in factories. Yeah, we all got wood and nails, and we sleep inside of this machine. So around this time, the band was clearly communicating, and especially Jesse as a primary songwriter, the internal struggles that they were dealing with. That was connecting to fans. It was raw. It was honest. Even in the shows around this time, Jesse has been recounted by fans as even communicating, feeling like a hypocrite, like he didn't deserve the fame that he was receiving, that they didn't actually belong. And you can hear that in the lyrics as well. The band also became really mysterious around this time. So they did fewer interviews, they avoided the press, and they truly chose to step back and let the music speak for itself, let the music just be. And it worked. Some bands don't succeed in that way. At this point in time, Brand New was very successful letting their music speak and their music connected. It's like we saw with even Dashboard Confessional, which we are going to get into next week, but the lyricism and how it connects created an intimacy and an experience with fans that was disconnected from Brian Lacy, disconnected from Brand New as a band of people, right? And instead, the shows were more like a therapy session and a collective unity, experience with all of the different fans singing out the lyrics and experiencing the lyrics together live compared to the just listening to the band members and praising the band members. So they were very mysterious. And by the 2010s, the fan base had become kind of like a cult in a way, because people were obsessed. They tattooed the lyrics on their bodies. Shows were selling out instantly. There was a lot of kind of elusiveness to what the band was communicating. And so every cryptic social media post was dissected like it was gospel, kind of like we see with the Swifties, right? And Taylor Swift, but even more mysterious and private, where bands were obsessed with figuring out what came out next. And they would even have like these merch drops that would sell out within minutes. And people were just craving like any little bit of information they could get because the amount of information was so rare, and they were ready for more music. They were ready for whatever happened next. They even found that during the shows around this time, that set list would change nightly. So there was this feeling of you never know what's going to come or what to expect. And then on Reddit, there were a lot of debates between fans of what was going to happen. So in 2014, they have the single Mean, which sparked speculation about a new record. And Vincent Accardi told NME in 2015, we don't owe anyone a schedule. That unpredictability is part of the art now. So there seemed to not even be a plan. But they did go on tour in 2015, and they teased this isn't goodbye, it's just the end, which sparked these rumors of a breakup. So that was kind of going around. They were teasing these different things. Fans were speculating. But in 2017, they surprised everyone by releasing Science Fiction with zero warning, just released it, which became their first Billboard #1 album. It was apocalyptic, it was poetic, it was terrifyingly calm, which was interesting and unexpected. And fans celebrated, but also feared that it was going to be the final chapter. They felt like, before what comes next, they felt like this was just the end of it all. And in 2017, Lacey told Noisy, we didn't know if this would be the end, but we made peace with that. The album felt like closure. So there was some feeling that this might actually be where it all stops. And because the band was so private, there wasn't a lot of communication around why. Were there tensions in the band? What was going on? Did the art just die out? Was it the fame and the pressure of that, which we saw with so many other bands in the space? It was unsure. But looking at some of the songs, so this is where we got the songs Can't Get It Out, Lit Me Up, and Waste. And looking at Can't Get It Out lyrics, as we glide over whatever, we know to be over forever. I really hope the shame is less for what we feel in times of stress. But I guess that's just depression. No sense in fighting it now. You had me caught in your headlights. You were running me down. We speak in tongues and start to teethe. Lift your voice and scrape your knees. Kids in love will plant a seed. Resurrect and start to breathe. I thought I was a creator. I'm here just hanging around. Got my Messiah impression. I think I got it nailed down. I want to tell you we're all right. Want to erase all your doubt. I've got this thorn dug in deeply. Sometimes I can't get it out. I'm strumming with a heavy wrist. Were you one of the cured kids? My shins burn for the replica youth. I hope that we can eject soon, because I don't want to surrender or lose your face in the crowd. I finally found all my courage. It was buried under the house. Not just a manic depressive toting around my own cloud. I've got a positive message. Sometimes I can't get it out. So you can tell, that darkness that we experienced in the last two albums, and especially The Devil and God Raging Inside of Me. This album highlighted even more of this theme of depression, of internal struggle, turmoil, navigating that, figuring that out. It was dark. And a lot was revealed by late 2017, where everything came to a screeching halt. And this is where allegations of sexual misconduct surfaced against Jessie Lacey, including inappropriate online behavior and underage fans. So the first public accusation came from Nicole Elizabeth Gary, who alleged that Lacey began soliciting nude photographs from her in 2002 when she was 15 and he was 24. Gary described the interactions as manipulative, with Lacey making specific demands regarding poses and attire and coercing her by implying that his approval depended on her compliance. She stated that these exchanges continued intermittently over several years, causing lasting psychological trauma. So she's the first one that came forward. Following her disclosure, other women came forward with similar stories. Emily Driscoll recounted that Lacey began soliciting explicit photos from her when she was 17 and later engaged in a coercive sexual behavior when she was 18. Driscoll detailed instances where Lacey used his status to manipulate her, threatening to limit her access to the band if she did not comply with his demands. So these were the most public accusations around that time. And many fans, the majority of the scene at the time, were fully behind these girls. Because, as we can all recognize, and especially in this scene, Hayley Williams of Paramore has talked about this a lot, but the scene itself has not always been safe for girls and for women, both artists and fans alike. Unfortunately, that has been the case. Even as a woman myself, I'm 33, most of my life, there has not been a lot of safety around being a girl, being a woman, and alone in a scene that is primarily men, and especially young teenage boys that brains have not fully developed either. And there's some sense of power, and power often brings out the worst in people and brings out these true colors that, are fueled by what they can get away with, which is never okay. And girls being manipulated, being taken advantage of was a very common thing to see in the scene at the time. And that is where a lot of this has come from, of these girls who were connected to the scene through friends, who were fans, who were, working like photographers or with blogs and all these different things. They had access to a lot of these artists And a lot of them had taken advantage of them. And these were some of the stories of Jesse Lacey's direct involvement in that and in the scene. So he personally issued a statement on Facebook saying, "I'm sorry for the hurt I've caused. I take full accountability and am seeking treatment for my issues, including sex addiction," which a lot of people have had trouble with accepting because there wasn't necessarily a direct apology to the girls that were there. There was not a lot of direct, explicit, like, apology for the actions that were taken. And then also, some fans have said that, kind of hinting at sex addiction as a bit of a blame felt misguided because the manipulation of younger girls and children is very different than just sex addiction, and that addiction could have been placed in other places. I don't know if that's worth that much. I mean, it's bad no matter what, right? Both sides of it. Meaning his both angles, not the girls. But then Brand New List actually released a full Facebook post, a lot longer, that reads, "In an effort to address recent events and the public conversation currently happening, I feel it is important to make a clear and personal statement." So this was signed Jesse Lacey, but from the Brand New account. "The actions of my past have caused pain and harm to a number of people, and I want to say that I'm absolutely sorry. I do not stand in defense of myself, nor do I forgive myself. I was selfish, narcissistic, and insensitive in my past, and there are a number of people who have had to shoulder the burden of my failures. I apologize for the hurt I have caused, and I hope to be able to take the correct actions to earn forgiveness and trust. Early on in my life, I developed a dependent and addictive relationship with sex. I was scared of it, ashamed, and unwilling or unable to admit it. And so it grew into a consistent and terrible problem. Years ago, after admitting my habits and cheating to my then soon to be wife, I began to approach my problem in a serious way. I entered professional treatment, both in group therapy and individual counseling, and revealed the realities of what a terrible place I got into in my life and what a terrible impact my actions had on people. Lust, sex, love, and arousal were coping tools for me, and I returned to them repeatedly. I detached my own feelings and emotions from most of my sexual interactions. I hid or lied about my behavior to escape reproach. I was a habitual cheater. I've been unfaithful in many, if not most, of my relationships, including my relationships with my wife, who has, with all of her might, patience, and grace, tried to hold our marriage together, despite having to endure the pain of the revelations of my past. It is heart-wrenching that the most important changes in my life have come at the expense of others. I am sorry for how I have hurt people, mistreated them, lied, and cheated. I'm sorry for ignoring the way in which my position, status, and power as a member of a band affected the way people viewed me or their approach of their interactions with me. And I'm sorry for how often I've not afforded women the respect, support, or honesty that they deserved, and which is their right. I believe in the equality and autonomy of all, but in my life, I have been more of a detriment to those ideals than an advocate. I'm working to shed my narcissism and self obsession and to be better. In sobriety, I've changed my life and in my mind in real and important ways. I've also revealed the truth of my behaviors to myself and to others. I do not have words to express the patience and help my wife has offered me. I love my family with an intensity and realness that I've never felt before. And as a husband and a father, I've been granted the opportunity to wake up each day with the intent to serve my family and the people around me, and to feel for the first time that I have purpose. The fact remains that none of us get to put a wall up between who we are and who we were. I need to earn forgiveness. Concepts like repentance, compassion, and love are made real through actions, and it's through my actions that I need to prove change. I hope I can show humility and that the pain I've caused people can heal. I am not above reproach, and no one should be. So while Lacey did issue this apology, he admitted to the addiction that he was dealing with for a lot of his life. He admitted to seeking treatment. The damage for Brand New was done. Tours were canceled and their public image completely collapsed. They were already mysterious, but at this point, they seemed to just completely disappear. So in 2017, it seemed like they were completely gone. And this was a huge disruption and caused a lot of debate, but also confusion for fans because fans were so closely tied to the band, to the music, and they were torn. They wanted to support the girls, right? And Lacey was never charged with anything. And I think that's something a lot of people bring up today, but he admitted to the majority of his shortcomings. And while he didn't explicitly say that he did certain actions, he did admit to the troubling past he had and the mistakes that he had made. And in, comparison to the allegations, like the best that we can believe from that is that he did do those things with those girls that communicated them because he never denied those. And, they didn't press charges and some may not have been able to, that's really complex, but he did disappear. And fans had to decide, do we stand behind these girls and just wipe brand new from our memory and move on? Do we try to separate the music from the artist? Do we want a band without him when a lot of the songs are deeply connected? What do we do about it? So it was complicated, and some fans burned CDs and never listened to another song by Brand New ever again, and decided that that would be something that they would never support, and they wanted no money at all to go to him or other band members that alleged that they had no idea this was going on. And it's complicated, right? Especially looking behind the curtain at the scene at the time. It's not all rosy. There's a lot of darkness and a lot of stuff that happened around there. So do we accept that? Do we just separate and enjoy the music that had been made previously? What do you do with it? Brand New decided to disappear. No interviews, no new music, no word. And it felt like at this point, Brand New was over. But then 2025 happened. Brand New, the Brand New, quietly returned to the stage with a cryptic Instagram post. So a black and white photo of an empty church with the caption, "Are you still with us?" After that, they announced a short, intimate tour under the name Science Fiction Revisited. And they did make all proceeds go to mental health and abuse survivor charities, including RAINN and To Write Love on Her Arms. So this sparked conversation, criticism, and from some, cautious optimism. It sparked even where this conversation today is coming from. The shows were intimate, they've been minimalist, and the band has said almost nothing on stage. Even Jesse Lacey did a little, like some solo shows. He did one here in Nashville. I did not go, but even there, didn't necessarily talk about it much. Instead, they chose to let the music, as much as possible, speak for itself. In a brief statement to Pitchfork, Vincent Accardi shared, "We're not here to reclaim anything. We're here because we believe in healing, however late it comes." So after announcing their tour on April 4th, which at the time we're recording this is 12 days ago, very recent, another woman came forward with a previously undisclosed allegation of grooming that began in 2005. So not a new incident necessarily, but a new allegation that was not previously disclosed during the original allegations. So in a detailed Medium post, the woman by the name of Ayana shared her story of meeting Lacey and his tour manager with her best friend when she was 15. Her friend was 16. And Lacey would have been around 26 or 27 at the time. Some people even said like 29. So we'll just say later 20s. After she gave Lacey handmade gifts, he asked for her contact information. So from there, the band's tour manager offered Ayana and her friend VIP access to various shows and tours, inviting them through AIM Messenger. They hung out on the tour bus regularly. So at a show in Kansas, Lacey allegedly became more playful and teasing towards her and said something along the lines, "If we're going to be friends, you're going to have to put up with a little teasing every now and then." They had dinner with the band. Lacey initiated regular contact with Ayana through the messenger. And he would allegedly frequently make comments such as, I wish you weren't 15 years old. After one show, the tour manager allegedly sent a text to Ayana along the lines of, you two are so cute. Jesse and I were just talking about how we want to snuggle with both on the tour bus. Lacey also apparently once told her that he didn't hate her, but she wasn't old enough to marry yet. Apparently, he visited her with her family in New York and like went to dinner with them, got pictures done together, things like that. So the allegations were about the manipulation, abuse of power, leading her on. The allegations didn't go further into any specific misconduct beyond that, but kind of re-sparked the conversation and debate around, can we forgive for past actions? This says technically still in the past. They haven't necessarily addressed this new allegation. I think at some point they're going to have that conversation of what has growth looked like. Some fans do believe that, Jesse showed remorse and that it seems that he is different from who he was in his 20s and that there should be space for change to happen, outside of celebrity and power. I have to agree. I think people should take accountability for their actions. There should also always be space to grow and change and to say you're sorry and make amends with the people that you've hurt and also keep moving forward in your life. I think that is definitely something that people deserve. Now, do they deserve power though? I think that is a different conversation that we've had even with politicians, right? And so it's interesting. And then there's other fans who are saying, I can't let my money go there. Like, we can't ignore the fact that these songs were built off of, this treatment towards girls. And do we know if this is safe? Like, because the band hasn't said much, do we actually believe that there has been any change? Or is, reintroduction to power just going to open up the exact same doors that were there before, which no one can truly say beyond Jesse Lacey, right? And even he like, if this is all, stemmed from a place of addiction, like how much of that is controlled? Like, what are the safeguards? What are the boundaries? Like, what does that look like now? What did healing look like? What does recovery look like? Without transparency, it is hard to know what to believe and what to trust in that space. And with that, brand new story isn't necessarily over. It's layered, it's complicated, it's filled with both brilliance and toxicity, with heartbreak, with timeless songs, lyrics, and records. They were never just an emo band. They were the emo band of a generation until they were removed from the scene. But their music and their influence has not been removed and is still there. And it's interesting. I don't I don't know. I think I don't even have that much of a personal opinion. I'm still figuring out how I approach them. They did, I mean, Jesse had the solo show here in Nashville, then they had, I think, the start of their reunion, like the tour this year here in Nashville. And there was a part of me that deeply wanted to be in that room and experience like a revival of a band, and what people had been waiting years to experience again, almost 10 years. I would have loved to be in that room and experience the songs, right? But there's also a nuance to it and another layer to it that I don't necessarily want to be a part of. And even some of the posts, like the venue that hosted them here, didn't share about them at all. An organizer that kind of promotes shows in the scene here, they did share and got ripped apart on social media for it. Is that rightful? Is it not? I think that's the debate. And I don't know if there's a true answer, especially in this case where the question is not necessarily should someone who groomed children be allowed to be in these spaces again? The question is there a possibility for change? And what does that look like? And is there ever an opening? for someone who has done harm to others to be in spaces like this? Like, where is that space? And, we see in other genres, there are people who have treated others poorly, that have done damage, that have not been able to re-enter the space, that have not taken accountability, still been able to re-enter the space. And those who have grown, taken accountability, and have been able to create space and also do good. You look at like Jelly Roll in the country space, right? So is it that we need transparency from Jesse showcasing that change in order for that space to be open again? I think it wouldn't hurt. I think it's time for a good brand new interview, maybe on their own terms, of what we need and where the door could be opened again. So if this episode hit you right in the feels, if it sparked some thoughts, please share. Please share. I mean, I want to hear your thoughts as well. If you enjoyed this episode and other episodes, if you found it positive or helpful or entertaining in any way, please subscribe, leave us a review. It helps a lot so that we can continue to grow our little community and continue to engage in these conversations together. And if you have a request of anything that you want to hear, a band that you want me to do a deep dive on, or if you want to come on the show and engage in that too, and share some of your favorite stories or go deep into a band that you love so much, please reach out. In the show notes, you'll see ways to reach out, email, all of that. I'd love to hear from you. Would love to have you on, or to even just take your requests. If you're like, hey, I love this band, I want you to do a deep dive on it. Great. Let me know. I would love to do it. Next episode, we are going to go into the ballads and the heartbreak of Dashboard Confessional. And I'm so excited. A little bit of a lighter side, and someone who has had less controversy around them and has been a little bit more of a light in the Zemo space. So until then, keep screaming your heart out, bust out the black eyeliner, lay on your floor, stream your favorite emo music, and I'll see you in the next class.